pretty much now as we see the tail end of the collapse of 3D. That's what this is. This is the tail end of the collapse of 3D. So that force of good upon this planet, that multidimensional, human and intergalactic force of good upon this planet, is tasked with the job of restoring planet Earth to the original template, the original blueprint. We've all agreed to come along for the ride or to participate in this repopulation of Eden. There was a time, and this was around about the 80s, there was a time where it looked like that wasn't going to work. There was a time where it looked like the only viable solution was to have some kind of cataclysmic event to end life on planet Earth that would have taken place in 2012, and then we could start fresh, we could start anew. But enough star seeds had populated by 2012 to be able to shift the consciousness.
So when you say star seeds, for those that are listening that might not have heard that term before, and I know many that are listening, it's an everyday piece of language, but basically those are beings from the future that have come back in time to assist in the liberation of humanity and the planet. Would that be accurate or somewhat accurate?
Yeah. Very accurate. Yeah, very, very accurate. From the human perspective, they would call it the future, but from the perspective of a higher being, they would simply say that they've come from a different star system and from a different state of consciousness.
Right.
We would call it a different state of time, but a different state of consciousness to populate the planet as human beings, to come into the amnesia, but somewhere within that amnesia of humanity, to have their memories at least partially restored, which enables them to participate more greatly in the unfolding of the healing of planet Earth. And by the healing of planet Earth, I mean all participants of planet Earth. Animals, humans, the air, the waters, everything. So that force of good upon this planet is comprised of multiple councils. And those multiple councils are they are part of the Galactic Federation. So the Galactic Federation has these multiple councils, and each council body will oversee a different part of the healing process. So there will be part of that counseling body that, for example, would work with the pollution on the planet. There'll be another that will work with the consciousness on the planet, and so on and so forth. There's various councils that make up the Galactic Federation. And these are the overseers right now. But it's important to know that even though there are those who are overseeing planet Earth, ultimately, it will be up to the human beings. Ultimately, it will be up to the human beings to retrace their steps and to choose a new path and a higher path. The difference is this time we will be assisted. This time the technologies will be available, the consciousness will be available. None of it will be blocked off from us as it was in the world we were born to. The world that we live in now is a world that is poised to become that Eden once more, but a higher level of that original Eden. Because in truth, we never go back to the same place. In truth, when I talk about return to Eden, it's not to go back to how things were. It is rather to bring in that initial blueprint and populate it with how things can be. So it's to include the current potential of where we are right now. So does that answer your question about the beings who are overseeing what's going on the planet right now?
Well, that certainly adds, yeah, I mean, well, it was a very broad question to begin with, but what I want to impart with people that are listening is actually, let's expand on the individual counterparts that we all have. So not only does each individual have their beloved soul or their spirit, guides as well, if you will, angelic, their own angels, their spirit guides, but we also have our galactic star brothers and sisters. Bad thing. But tell us a little bit about the counterparts that we have. we all have an individual from our galactic family
Sure.
is supporting us in dream time, in our meditations. Tell us a little bit about that, Kerry. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So galactic counterparts.
Okay.
Let's talk about that.
So so I love to work with the galactic counterparts when I'm working with people in courses, and I work with a weekly group of people. We talk a lot about our galactic counterparts, and we connect with them a lot because they want to be connected with, they want to be acknowledged, and they want to work with the human. And who they are is individual to each being. So each human being on planet Earth right now has what we can understand as a biological heritage, meaning your mother, your father's father, mother's mother, etc. But within our literal biology, within our genetics in the body, we also have traces that go back to our initial soul heritage. So for any given being, that could be that they have a very strong Pleiadian link, or a very strong Lyrian link, or from the Andromedas, or from wherever it might be. Normally what we find is that the galactic counterpart or counterparts are of the individual's soul heritage. So if that's an individual that has a strong lineage in Sirius, they're going to have Sirian counterparts. Why? Because that's what's familiar to the body and to the biology of the body. The body is going to be able to process that information from the galactic counterpart very, very easily if it is within their genetic lineage. So there is so much of DNA and RNA, in fact, that we don't understand. We think it's a purely physical level makeup. We don't perceive of DNA to be a multidimensional thing, because it is.
Or quantum.
It is a multidimensional thing. So we have galactic family. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, quantum. So the double helix is really biochemistry, right? It's biochemicals of the body, and anything beyond that is quantum, because we are
absolutely.
So not just we're not human. We are magical beings.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the counterpart is of the individual's lineage, and that counterpart will be working with that individual already. But when we can make that work conscious, as in to invite that counterpart in to a meditation or an activation, we find that we are gaining more insight, deeper levels of connection, deeper levels of awakening. Because, we use this word awakened as if it is one state that we're describing, like I'm asleep or I'm awake, without realizing that even awakening is comprised of many, 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 many octaves. So no matter how so-called awakened a person might be, the galactic counterpart is going to take them deeper and deeper and deeper into that journey of awakening. So they are beacons of consciousness that catalyze the human into returning to or restoring their original memories. They're very beautiful, they're very dedicated, and they're very present with humanity right now. Very present.
And of course, that is available for those that wish to choose it, right? They can foster that relationship with their counterpart, their galactic counterpart. Yep. That's a choice, because they won't work with you if you're afraid, and they won't work with you if it is not your choice, because we have free will. Now, you were saying
what I love.
Go ahead. Sorry, there was a bit of a delay.
Sorry, Paula.
No, go ahead.
No worries. What I love about the Galactics is how phenomenally respectful they are. If at any time the human goes, like there's a recoiling of energy, there is I'm not sure about this, they will not enter, they will not come in. Nor will they come in on a consciousness level unless they're invited. In other words, they're not going to come into your meditation unless you invite them in. They are highly respectful of your sovereignty, highly respectful of your right to choose, of your free will. They do not impose. No 5D being imposes upon or impedes your free will. So highly, highly respectful.
And then
and it's important to know.
And I just
Sorry, Paula.
that though is so that's the galactics, but also spirit, because you can because we are really transistor radios. This pineal gland, we're a receiver, right? We're a consciousness receiver. But even spiritual beings, for those out there that are listening, guardian angels, spirit guides, high beings will never ever tell you that you're special, that you're the only one getting the information. And
definitely.
Fear. So just as we need to practice safe sex, we practice energetic hygiene, and we don't open our method of communication just to anybody.
Yeah, definitely true.
And that would be based on our vibration and based on our intention if we're going into meditation, correct?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's really, really important. I think that people need to be wise and aware that this is not spirituality. It's not a game in the sense that it's something that you can win or lose. It is something that is your true nature. That's what spirituality is. But as we return to our true nature, we get to face certain lessons along the way. And some of those lessons are how not to be taken advantage of, how to wisen up, how to become more responsible, more mature, make better decisions, etc.
Boundaries.
So this journey of spirituality, we will face that which we need to face in order to wisen us up and support us in our journey. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There's a delay, so we're doing our best.
You were gonna ask a question after that, I think?
Yeah, no, what I was gonna share was that you were talking about planet Earth, the original jewel, the original gem in the universe was indeed indeed intended to be a place for all beings to come to. And based on their vibration, their vibration would provide them access to universal information on all of creation, because they couldn't just gain access to anything they wanted. Their resonant frequency had to be high enough and pristine enough to give them the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. But like you said, that was kind of hijacked. There were other beings that had different intentions, which has steered us in a completely different direction. And that is what is happening right now, is the collapse of that 3D reality does not support the whole. It only supports a few, and that is not the divine original intention. Because if you think about it, we can do so much better when you're working with spirit and being the architect and the designer. Imagine what we can create. This is what you can do with the ego mind. Quite the shit show, right? Quite a disaster. Terrible caretakers. I would fire this caretaker. If the collective was a janitor taking care of a school, you're fired. You're doing a terrible, terrible job. And that's what so let's talk about, we've gone through 3D, 4D, 5D, and maybe this is where it would be a really good place to close this conversation, is we are about to jump up an octave in our reality. And we don't want to predict or prescribe what we think it's going to look like. Because what I've been shown is that we've been upside down for so long. That's normal. When we're righted, it's going to take a little bit to kind of get our bearings.
Yeah.
But what do you feel into that shift, Kerry? That shift in octave. What do you feel into what that might look like for folks that are listening?
Yeah, it's going to look different for everyone.
Yeah.
And for some people it's going to look chaotic, and for some people it's going to look like heaven's just come down and the angels are blowing their trumpets. It's going to look different for everybody depending on their lens through which they perceive the world.
Their consciousness.
Which is why predictions and all of this stuff, it doesn't really work, because unless a person is aligned to the person who is predicting, unless you're in that person's reality, your reality is going to look really different. So rather than looking at the predictive outcomes, if we look at what's taking place, 3D has collapsed. 4D is where we are right now. Normally, a 4D bridge would take us a couple of hundred up to 1,000 years to traverse before we could be ready to move into 5D. Because we've been so delayed and so held back on this planet, the progression along that 4D bridge, rather than taking hundreds of years, even 1,000, is going to happen in a couple of months to the maximum of 2 or 3 years, at which point we're going to see the first embodiers of 5D upon the planet. So in other words, that 4D bridge is now really, really short in terms of the time span, but the distance is still the same. Does that make sense? So the distance between 3D and 5D is still the same distance. We're just doing a crash course and putting it into a very short space in time. So what we have upcoming is that crash course, that rapid progression through 4D. What does that mean? It means everything's going to change, including the way you perceive life, the way you think right now, the way you feel, the way you eat, the way you earn money. Everything is going to change. The question is, how willing am I to transform? Or how inclined am I to hold on to the old? That's a big question right now. The more we can let go of. So the theme of emptying your cup has been a very big theme that I've been speaking about for the last couple of weeks. That this is the time where we should not be taking in more and more information, which I notice a lot of people doing. You can do it. It's just making life pretty difficult. To make life easier, let go, purge, empty your cup, release, so that you feel clear on the inside. The more you can do that, the more aligned you are to 5D, the less attachment you have to the old, because that is what people are going to struggle with now.
Yeah.
It is not that our planet has been, in a sense, and I really use this word in inverted commas, it is not that our planet has been rescued from the forces of darkness, because it has. It is rather that humanity are going to be, or have set themselves up to be, their own worst enemy, whereby they will gravitate to the habit of the old, even when the new is right there, right in front of their eyes. So rather than looking at predictive events, look at the real essence of what's going on here. We are being gifted a crash course through 4D, a rapid fire entry into 5D. The ease of that pathway depends on our willingness to purge ourselves of all that we were once holding on to, be they political affiliations, alignments, beliefs, whatever it might be, that we can gain access to our 5D consciousness more freely, more quickly, more easily. So that is where my focus is right now, is how can people empty their cup and stabilize themselves into higher frequency, because that's going to be really necessary moving forward. Moving forward, we're going to have a lot of opportunities to wobble. As full disclosure is upon us, because that's where we are right now on that 4D bridge, we're at full disclosure. Full disclosure should have taken 100 years, which means, and this, by the way, was even in 2018, which is only 2 years ago. In 2018, the Galactic plan was to allow full disclosure to take place over 100 years. We realized we didn't have 100 years. We tried to take that down to 50 years. And the reason that we needed that length of time was so that people's minds didn't break, was so that people didn't lose themselves and go insane, because that's a rapid acclimation for any psyche to work through. So disclosure, full disclosure, was meant to take place over a very long period of time. It's going to take place over a couple of weeks. So the question is not, are we going to have full disclosure or not? The question is, how are we going to acclimate to that? If you empty your cup, if you can, whilst emptying your cup, anchor yourself, or better yet, stabilize yourself into 5D frequency, it's going to feel to you like the next couple of days, weeks, and months on planet Earth are just graceful and easy. If you're holding attachments where it's like, I need to see these events playing out, or I don't believe this, or I don't believe that, if you bring in that lens or that perception of chaos, it's going to be a pretty chaotic path. So
yeah,
you're going to, so both opportunities are available.
Yeah, it feels like you're either going to move through this transition in love,
I'm listening,
trust, and in knowing, or in fear. Fear will make you hold on to the old. And what will help navigate these times in love, of course, is by going within, connecting to the heart, maintaining that connection with your soul, your spirit, is looking at this like an incredible opportunity to rethink everything, to re-know everything across the board. We can improve the way we're doing everything on here. And I have to say, for me, I am so excited, but a very peaceful, calm, I wonder what's going to happen kind of experience. I get to watch God in action. I get to witness the shifting of a reality. And it feels to me like this is, like, so grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this, you know, and hold the hands of my brothers and sisters, our fellows, you know, our fam jam, our earth fam jam, across that bridge and into a world where there is no suffering, where there is no starvation, there is no disease, and that we can create on earth, literally heaven on earth, which is,
it's why we're here. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I refer to as Eden. It's that heaven on earth. And we are here at this juncture because we chose to be. We could have opted out, but we didn't. Because you're alive today, you've already said yes. And if you haven't said yes, you've said no. And in that case, you're just here to wrap up the movie so that we have continuity. So there are those beings on the planet right now which are part of that wrapping up, part of the providing of continuity. But the vast majority of humanity right now are here because they've said yes. And how do you know if you've said yes? Because you'll feel it in your heart. Are you aligned to Eden? Are you aligned to ideas of living a transformed life, a heaven on earth? If you get a yes to that, or it feels exciting, there's your answer.
Yeah.
Those who've said no are the truly dark ones. Those who've said no are the ones that have said, I won't be a part of it. I don't want to see humanity prosper. Those are the no's. So you'll know if you're a yes or a no. There should be no doubt, no confusion about that. But nonetheless, yes. The majority of people, the majority of people are here because they said yes.
Yeah, you'll get a yes before you even ask the question. Like you'll start to go, and you're like, I already know. You already know.
Yeah.
Because we are meant here. Absolutely. We are meant to lift each other up. We are meant to lift each other up.
Yeah.
And I daydream about communicating with animals very clearly. I daydream about enchanted forests and magic, and just the things that we, something as simple as when your tummy feels a little bit off, why can't we know exactly what we need to correct it immediately? Like, why would we, you know what I mean? That's where we're moving, I feel, where the body's innate intelligence.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very exciting.
I agree.
So,
and we're moving to that place where, sorry, Paula.
No, there's a delay. We're doing the best we can.
In the example that you just gave, No, I know. In that example that you gave, where you say, you would be able to communicate and say, well, what is it that my body needs right now? Let's just say, for example, the body answered and said, black walnut, vitamin C, whatever it might be. In that moment that you get the answer, you can tune into the energy field of that living essence and begin to bring it into your body. That's the world that we're tuning into. Earlier, you said, Paula, something about we get to watch God in action. And as you said that, in my mind, I heard the words, but who is God? Who is this being that you're watching in action? Remember that this is your own higher self. Your highest self is the being that we call God. And it's important that we recognize that this is, when we refer to God, that this is not a being outside of self. That at the ultimate, hugest, largest, greatest, most expansive version of you, you are God. And it brings me back to one of the most beautiful truths, and that is looking at planet Earth and all the diversity, including the galactics, including all of the human beings, however many billion there are of us, all the participants, the animals, nature. If we look at all that populates Earth right now, ultimately, there is only one of us here. And that one is God. You as God's source in many different bodies.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where we're moving to, where it will not be okay for anybody to be hungry. We will just not have any of it because we know they're our brother. We would never let our brother or sister, which I think is just so beautiful. Yeah. So beautiful. Where we're going is so incredible. It's very exciting. So Kerry, how do people find you,
darling?
So tell me a little bit about your Patreon group. If people want to work with you a little bit more and directly with the Galactics, how do they find you? And of course I'll put all the links on the video as well.
Okay, so they go to my website, which is kerryk.net, and at kerryk.net, that's spelled with 2 K's, so KERRYK, kerryk.net, there's a rewards section. Click on the reward section, and that opens up the links to Patreon. It gives you a little video about what my Patreon community is about, and it also shows you the various Patreon rewards that my people have on offer to them. So there's an entire library of past calls that we've been through and invites to a whole lot of future events that people will find on that page.
And then most of your videos, you said, are being moved onto your website, right? Your historical, the talks and conversations you've done, they're being moved so that they can access them directly on your page. Okay, cool. All right.
They're in the process of being moved over so that they're accessible. But if you go to kerryk.net and you click on rewards, you'll find all the information there.
Yeah. And anybody else that's listening, if you want to hear us talk about any other subjects because you've enjoyed this chat, do send me an email at info@elevatebhub.com and make any recommendations. Kerry and I will be indeed talking further in the near future. And thanks for listening. We're going to sign off. Don't go away, Kerry. We're going to sign off for now. Have a good day, and we'll be back with you soon.